This guy cracks me up. All right, so another thing we can do. Oh, I should start indicating the neck at this point as well, just because you know this is kind of approaching the finish line at this point. So I'm gonna block it in. Remember how I block in stuff pretty fast? Well, first off, like with the selection tool here, this lasso tool, and that's kind of what I'm going to use. I'm I'm just gonna play around with the shape first, and then we'll see. Maybe that's a good shape. I don't know, but let's try this. Oh shoot! Yeah, there you go. And let's use that filled in first. Yeah. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna start off using the same colors that are currently existing on the face, and then from there, if I need something else, I can play around with it. Okay, so again, I haven't really changed up my brush a whole lot, but I know there's going to be a highlight here. Okay, what's the neck? What's the neck? Yes, it's a cylinder. So you're gonna have a highlight around here, right? You're gonna have a core shadow, probably around here-ish, because you're seeing a little bit of darkening happening around here, right? So core shadow right here, right? Right. And this is kind of the highlighted area, right? Yeah, I'm playing with sort of the general cylinderness of it first, right? And I'm picking these colors, these local colors. I'm trying to figure out, like, yeah, okay, that kind of fits cylinder-wise. But that's just the underlying form. There's going to be other forms on top of it, but this is a good start, right? And so what we can do is figure out what the other things are. So like you got a throat right here, the trachea, and what is that? That's yet another cylinder. It's like a half cylinder that's embedded into the larger cylinder. So then we can actually start going back in with a little bit of a highlighted again for this throat area, right? And it's just a smaller version of the cylinder. So we got that. We get dark again, and then we start blending this in. And then on the other side of it, it'll kind of get dark and kind of lighten out again. So there's another shape. Sometimes people have these like tendons on the neck, right? That kind of cross over. So this part right here, like let's say for example you had like a tendon coming out here, then this, but it'll blend eventually into the skin, right? It'll eventually blend, kind of like that. There's probably some veins on top of all that, but we can do that last, right? You don't want to do that. The other thing to consider is this cylinder has a giant head on top of it, and so so this head is going to cast shadows on the cylinder, right? So we're just going to take this dark thing and just going to put a cast shadow underneath this, and that's going to pop out the other side of that chin, right? Because there's a cast shadow right there. Something like that. And then maybe we get a little bit of a bounce light coming back again. You see that? See how I arrived at thinking that way? A lot of times around the after the core shadow, there will be a little bit more saturation happening around here. So I'm just going to come back with a little bit more brown and red around there. And that also makes it feel like there's a bit more blood going through them. Right?
You should add like blood cuts.
Like he's been, I don't know. Right. And yeah, I mean, we could play all day. This is fun, right? So things we could do. We could grab this whole, all three layers that make the head, and shoot, come on, all three layers that make the head, and tilt it a little bit too, to really emphasize that eyebrow is going way up, like that. No. So what I like about what's happening at this point in the painting is, as I'm talking to you guys, I'm talking, well, sort of back and forth about basic shapes, but I'm also, because you have things kind of already down, now we're just talking about, oh, let's tilt his head a little. I'm talking about the pose and the attitude and the acting, less so about like the technical stuff, but I'll still come back to the technical stuff, but I'm just, once you get a piece to a certain point, it really starts feeling like it's coming alive, I guess, and you don't have to. Everything you do now is everything now is gravy, right? Everything now is just frosting. That's pretty cool. I like that neck. All right. Back to you, Head.
Big tendon sticking out of his neck.
And let's look at these lips. These wonderful lips. You can see how he broke down the lips. Like overall, it is a tube of some sort. Almost looks like an earthworm or something, right? But it's got some, I guess, cross wrinkles, ribbing going across the lip like that. And so, in order to do that, you need a shadow and a highlight, and that's what we can do here. Is let's just start painting in. Let's just paint in all the shadows first, and then we'll worry about the highlights on top of that. And notice that the shadows here on the lips, it's not black, right? He didn't use black, for the shadows on that lip. He used sort of a darker red color, right? So you don't want to, if I chose this color right here and did that it would be wrong, right? Yeah, basically it's just kind of a darkish color. And then this part. Oh yeah, by the way, you can cheat. So I can color pick right off of. What? Yeah. Yeah, I'm just color selecting off of the Steven Tyler painting. Because why not? It's right there. I can use it. Well, that's a pretty good highlight. Something like that. And even here. Now, as time goes on and you're feeling more confident about your painting skills, and that confidence only comes out of doing a lot of these, right? Then you're gonna have your go-tos and the kind of colors you like to do, or instinctively you're like, no, I don't need a color pick anymore. And then you kind of realize, hey, I've actually learned something over the years. But working off of sort of master's works, and I would call this guy a master of caricature, um, is going to help. Important things to realize, though, just to let you know. Okay, if I were to draw out the shape of the lips right here, like again, I'm thinking about it like it's an earthworm, right? Kind of like this, right? You want to make sure the curvature wraps around the form correctly. Like this part will start turning around. So this is like a corner right here. You see that? See what I mean? How like I'm thinking about it as it's a tube, it's a three-dimensional form. And then you could come in with your highlights. And you start off kind of general, kind of blurry. You don't have to start off really with white, but and that's with a broader brush. And then as you get more comfortable, then you go in with a smaller brush. And when you go in with a smaller brush, then that's where you get your real highlights. It might be a little bit too much, in which case then you go and you blend things back, knock it back a little bit, but it's better to start off kind of out there first. And again, these are like micro details and not, they really shouldn't take precedent over. I'm just going to draw in some of these highlights kind of like it's glistening. It's probably better for me to be painting this from far away because then I can have a big picture view of it. Helps me indicate more versus getting lost in the details. But with enough going back and forth like this and color picking from all sorts of wonderful sources here, you can kind of get your way to finish. It's a lot of back and forth. Sometimes you'll paint in a very saturated color, and then you'll be like, oh, I want something in between that. So then you just knock it back again with a darker color. Something like that. The gums are so good here. Sheesh, how does he paint those teeth? He really put time into it. So you said $50,000 for one of these caricatures? Yeah, he put weeks. You put weeks into this. There's a lot of work going on here. Plus the fact that he's super famous, I guess. I could see why it did that well.
Maybe the sun, but don't sigh, I guess.
Oh, that too? Yeah, that could be it. Celebrities, man. They love themselves. Yeah. Things I know about anatomy, I know that there's a little ball at the end of your eye like that. So I'm just going to indicate that, paint that in. There's going to be a little bit of pink actually right there as well. Around. Basically, it's like the under part of the eyelid. Right? And then there's the eyelash. Oh yeah, things that the micro details. This is where you could start getting into it, I guess. Maybe it's time to move on to a different brush. Maybe a hard round brush. So this is where you can actually the pores of the nose right there. See how you got like little dots here? And just start painting those in. Little pores of the nose. Like that. These highlights. Yeah, does he have a gap in his teeth? I don't know. But maybe. This is a opportunity to get kind of crazy with your line work as well in the hair. With one of these. Something that'll really pop. Because with this sort of brushy brush, sometimes things will get kind of lost in the mix. And remember the thing with the drool too. I really. So first, you got some. Remember on this tongue, you got some little specks, little highlight specks on that tongue right there. I'm just kind of painting that in. I'm gonna enlarge this brush and lower the opacity. Oh, by the way, the opacity is up here. Right now it's at 100%. You can lower it down to like 13. And you could just paint things in sort of, soft. Now, off of this snaggle tooth of his, I think is a good one. And what I'm doing here is what's called lost and found. You don't need to draw a straight line all the way through, right? The highlight, the glisten, think of a spider web, right? It doesn't necessarily have to go all the way through. It could just be at the tips and then it gets thinner in the middle somewhere. This is a little bit of finessing, but I don't like that. So that little bit is just like That's moi. You know, that's little emphasis around the eye. Give it contrast. We will really notice the stuff around the eyes, so whatever you emphasize here is going to get extra attention. Sometimes you could just kind of get kind of crazy here. Once you've got the building blocks down, you can make it almost look like everything's intentional. Like, look at this, Lucy. Like, hey, it's just a sketch. Don't oh, maybe not that one. That says don't judge too hard, guys. Uh, this is just a sketch.
You don't have no busyness on this.
No. At first I was thinking to do that, but because this guy is so wild and crazy, I'm thinking maybe we don't need it. Just straight up painting. I'm going to do very little clipping mask on the fantasy piece as well. Figure I'd teach you guys new techniques, new tricks. If you want to get more painterly, you know, and less digital looking, then you kind of do a bit more like, for example, I just paint whatever the background color is back in. So for example, if I were to change the background color right now, it will break my illusion. See, if I change my background color right now, all that red that I painted in, that I used to cut in, now kind of pops out, right? So once you lock your background, you're going to want to only paint over the top of it afterwards. Okay. I'm pretty happy with this. There's just maybe a couple of, you know, you could work on this all day. That's the other danger about all this stuff is, you know, what is it? A piece of art is never finished, only abandoned. So there you go. Okay. After we've got this, and in general, we've determined, like, at this point in time, whatever you do to it now is just going to be icing on the cake. It's just, we love it. It looks awesome and all that kind of stuff. You know, I could still work on it all day, but I could pretty much call it quits at this point and be perfectly decent. But then there might be a few more flourishes you want to do to kind of add in a little bit of story to it, or, you know, maybe color correct it. So here's where I bring in my airbrush, my soft brush, and I'm just gonna put it at about 78%. And on the brand new layer over the top of everything, I'm gonna set that on overlay and maybe try the background color first. And I'm just gonna start, you know, painting in. I don't know, what would that look like? Sort of with a bit more red, you know, like with a bit more rage in his eyes. I don't know, maybe his nose. I'm not sure. Maybe the mouth. I think color picking off of that bright red might work. No, can't do that because then that starts looking like lipstick. Right. Yeah. No. I think it's too much, so I'm just going to tone it down a little. Bring back a little bit of this pink, maybe. Huh? Oh, yeah. I just used that background color, but I think I went too dark. So what we can do is we can use sort of this color, and again, this is set at a 78. I can set it lower, you know. So what this is it's in 3D terms for shaders. It's called subsurface scattering. Basically, it's just like the light is shining through like your capillaries on your cartilage, like on the nose and on the ears. A lot of times you'll see like it's not going to be completely opaque. It'll come through a little bit, and then maybe it might be worth our while to bring in a little bit of blush. I'm not sure. A little bit of red in his eyes, or emphasizing sort of all the blood that is coursing through his veins, his head. Takes finessing, because if I just went in and did all of it, I don't know, that might work, but just kind of a little bit at a time. You don't want to make things too monochromatic. You want to actually have a variety of colors inside your piece as well. So I went in with the red pass, and now I'm just going to knock it back a little bit more with sort of normalizing it. That's pretty good. It does look pretty mad. Looks pretty angry. That's better. That's starting to look like gums and and this is just set on overlay. And what did overlay do? It kind of brought contrast into the image. So if I have like a really dark color, well, it's going to make it darker. If I have like a really bright color like that white, it's going to make things lighter, right? Which is actually pretty good if you want to soften last minute some of these brush strokes, some of these bits. It's not bad. Not terrible at all. An angry Nick Cage. Again, if you told me this was what I was going to be painting today, I wouldn't have known. It's like, oh, that's cool. Let me lower the opacity here. Just kind of make sure that this is kind of blended. And another thing too is like, yeah, that background's red, but now it's just red on red on red on red. You kind of need like a little bit of a complementary color. So on a new layer, I'm just gonna try to find what's the opposite of red. I think it's green.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna try to find opportunities to add in a little bit of green to it. And it's not gonna be a whole lot. Red's still gonna be the dominant color. But you don't want too much of one thing without the opposite. Just because that's not what happens in real life. You know, so adding a little bit of green back in here kind of helps really pop the red out even more. It's weird. They kind of help each other. See, so without the green, with the green, you know, with the green, without the green, right? I think it works better with the green. Cool. So there you go. Nicolas Cage. What did it look like before? I'll show you. Grab all the stuff that I made. group it, and that's what it was, and that's what we did to it, right? Not bad, right? And also look how low res this stuff was, right? This pixelation and stuff. We got rid of all that once we started painting over it, you know, and adding the caricature aspects to it. You know. Oh, one last minute thing. If you and I'll teach this when we do the oil painting trick. If you want this to really feel kind of like an oil painting, there is actually a way to do that. I'll show you. It's weird, but it kind of works sometimes. Basically, you go in with that brushy brush again, this like thing with scratches and hair on it, and you need to pick something like a medium gray, kind of like that, and you set this layer on overlay. Okay, and then there's this effects layer here where it says FX. It's called an effects layer. And you go to bevel and emboss. Okay, and yeah, why not call it a, I don't know. I don't know what kind of bevel and emboss. We can just go emboss. How about that? Smooth. That's all good. Hit OK. This is extra flourishing. You see what's happening here? When I paint in here, it almost feels like there's like an oil glaze on the top of it. You know? And what you want to do. Anybody know who Thomas Kincaid was? Anybody?
Famous.
He called himself the Painter of Light, which is kind of a funny title. So what he was known for was he figured out the gallery system. He ended up making his own galleries, and he's like, I'm limited on the number of paintings I can actually crank out and sell. And so what he ended up doing was he sold G-clay prints in his gallery. Basically, he made posters out of his paintings. And the posters were printed on canvas, and then they were mounted, you know, to look like a actual painting. And then on top of these prints, he would just go back in and put a couple of flourishes with actual oil paint brush strokes, you know. And so there is a little bit of actual paint on there, but he didn't spend the entire time doing that painting. He definitely saw the thing more as a business, for sure. But in any case, this is just like a little cheat that I've learned over the years to really make this thing kind of feel like there's a gloss, a bit of a glaze that people do. Sometimes after an oil painting is done, they'll put this like glaze over the top of it to kind of protect the painting. But what that does too is it kind of gives it a little bit of this gloss to it, this noise. And if it's too much, it's, you know, we can always tone it down because it's on a separate layer. So we could just make it knock back. And we can also, with the eraser tool, kind of where we don't want it a whole lot, like around the eyes maybe, like where we have detail, probably don't want it too much. So you just erase away. But like broad, boring areas, we want it to be brought back, right? So again, anytime you make something too perfectly, I'm just erasing back, knocking stuff back as I go, randomly, very randomly. Every time you make something a bit too perfect, it starts looking digital. You know, 100% of anything starts looking a little bit more digital. So you just kind of want to bring it back and almost like blur your eyes while you're doing this. But you can kind of feel like, oh, that could be an actual painting. afterwards. Yeah, I went down here to effects and then I checked the bevel and emboss. And basically all this is a layer of gray set on overlay, and there's a bevel and emboss on top of that. What does it look like when it's not set on overlay? Let me show you. It just kind of looks like this. Okay. So then you set it on overlay, and now you can see more of what's underneath.
Oh, so pretty much gets rid of some scratches.
Well, it actually adds in a little bit of, scratchiness and brush stroke marks. It's to make it feel more like a traditional oil painting, It's a trick. If you don't like it, don't do it, But I just wanted to show you guys, there's a few tricks under people's sleeves. There's another one where you have like a brush that has a canvasy texture to it, and so it doesn't look like I painted everything on this. Like there's still a little bit of leftover canvas at the end of the day. You get what I mean by that?
Yeah.
You could also do it with a canvasy photo as well. Like, I don't know, canvas wash. Canvas wash painting. I don't know. Canvas texture. Do that. So you find like a canvasy texture, and you can make a brush out of it, and then bring it back. But I'll show you guys how to make brushes later. But in lieu of making a brush, I could take this texture, copy image, go on top of this guy, and hit paste, right? And check this out. I'm just gonna Control J and then drag it over, right? And just gonna Control J again, drag it down until I kind of cover the whole thing. I'm just gonna merge these two. Control J, bring it down, merge. Yeah, I'm saving myself some time by doing it this way. Darn it. Oh heck, let me just cheat. Let me just do that. So I've got a canvas texture over the top of this. You could either set it on overlay and now it looks like canvas, right? Over the top of everything, right? Kind of like that. You can kind of see there's a bit of, it kind of feels like traditional.
Did you lower it?
No, not yet. I just darkened it a little bit. But you can lower the opacity of it as well. The other way to do this too, actually it's kind of good. You just duplicate this. Instead of setting it on overlay, you set it on normal, right? And I mean, yeah. And on this one, you pretty much, do a layer mask on it, and you fill it up with black. And then you take like a textured brush and you kind of bring back a little bit of the canvas texture on the corners. So I got this brush here called Duster. And I'm going to paint white back. I don't know. Maybe a different brush. Soft brown. Why not? See how, like, the corners doesn't look like I painted the whole thing? Like, maybe, right? Kind of like, it's weird because I'm painting in imperfections onto it to make it feel more like an actual painting, which is what you would get, right? And so some people have actually just, turned this into a whole brush, and you could just kind of paint that in. But you can see how I'm bringing back that canvas texture. It gives it sort of a, so with and without. And then you put this on a separate group. Without, it feels good, but very digital. And then with this stuff on there, now it's starting to feel more like a traditional painting. It's kind of weird, but you can see, like, if you zoom in, you can kind of see. Yeah, it looks legit. So there you go. So those are a couple of tricks. We'll go over those again when we do the Frazetta style painting as well. That's kind of the finishing tricks. Okay. All right. So everybody clear on the homework? Okay. We're gonna pick a celebrity. We're gonna caricature it using transform, warp, liquefy, cut out, and then we're gonna start painting over that and adding to it until we make it feel more like a actual piece of art. Okay.